بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أجمعين. Okay, welcome back everyone to Forever Preserved Surah Al-Hijr. Alhamdulillah, it is an honor to be here once again. We are nearing the completion of this surah, and today we're going to, inshallah, start with verse 78 through 79. And at the end, if we have some time left over, then we would like to inshallah, maybe go over some of the reflections that some of you shared, which were actually very, very insightful, very helpful. Okay, so Bismillah. Verse 78 and 79, let's take them together. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. وإن كان أصحاب الأيكة لظالمين فانتقمنا منهم وإنهما لبإمام مبين. And in كان. So in here, the way we're going to translate it, كان, were. It literally means if, but it doesn't mean if over here, right? So we have to look at it in the flowing translation. كان were أصحاب, the people, al-Ayka, of the people of Ayka, people of a thick forested region is what Ayka refers to. But here we'll just translate it as Ayka, and the Tafsir will explain what is meant by al-Ayka. La ظالمين, lam, certainly, surely, ظالمين were evildoers. Okay, they were oppressors. And the people of Ayka were also wrongdoers. فَانْتَقَمْنَا مِنْهُمْ. So this is from intiqam, right, which is revenge. So فَانْتَقَمْنَا, so we exacted retribution. Okay, that's how you would translate it. We took revenge. Min, from, them. وَإِنَّهُمَا, and indeed the two of them. Huma is the dual, referring to Ashabul Ayka, which we'll explain who they were in a moment, as well as the people of Lut alayhi salam, which is what the allusion is being made to. The people of Lut alayhi salam we discussed last time. So this context is continuing, and so it's referring to both the people of Ayka as well as the people of Lut alayhi salam. And so we exacted revenge from them. وَإِنَّهُمَا, and indeed both of them, لَبِإِمَامٍ مُبِينٍ, la, surely, bi imam, on a place, on an area, on a location, mubin, clear. Okay, so I'm going to do the flowing one more time for 70 and 79 together now. And the people of Ayka were also wrongdoers, so we chastised them. The desolate locations of both communities lie on a well-known highway. Okay. So here we have a new category of people being mentioned. Okay, Ashab al-Ayka. Does anybody know who Ashab al-Ayka were? Which prophet was sent to them? Any ideas? Anyone can want to type it in the chat. Who were Ashab al-Ayka in terms of what were they also called, and who was the prophet that was sent to them? Anybody know? Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, not Thamud, but the people of Shu'aib, okay? Who are also known as the people of Madian. Okay. So that is actually correct. So this is the new category of people that are being mentioned here, Ashabul Ayka, who again are also known as the people of Madian. And unfortunately, what they have in common with the previous nation that was mentioned, the nation of Lut alayhi salam, is that they were known for their oppression and rebellion against the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So to explain a bit more, that the people of Ayka, as the Fi mentions, were the community of Prophet Shu'aib alayhi salam, and they were also called Midianites after the name of their capital city of Midian. Okay, and why are they called people of Ayka? It's actually the ancient name of Tabuk. Okay, so Al-Ayka is the old name of Tabuk, And it literally means a thick forest. And the people of Madian, they lived close to this thick forest, and that's why they're called Ashabul Aika, Ashab of the people of the thick forest, because these people lived close to a thick forest. Okay, and al-Aika is not a term that you see a lot in the Quran, but subhanallah, we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the same people with different references. So here the reference to these people is made in accordance to the type of habitation or vegetation that they occupied. These are also the people of Shu'aib, right? So sometimes they are identified with their prophet as the people of Shu'aib, right? Or who Shu'aib was sent to. And sometimes they're called the people of Madian, right? But they're all the same people. And they're identified in different ways throughout the Quran according to the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to explain the same thing in different ways and to make reference to the same people in different ways for different purposes, right? So Sheikh Saadi has a very nice explanation of Al-Aika, and I know some of you enjoyed the linguistic explanation we did last week. So Al-Aika is actually Al-Bustan Kathir al-Ashjar. It's a bustan, a garden that we normally translate bustan into garden. So it's a garden that has many trees, okay? So bustan really is a term we have in Arabic now, but it was actually originally a Persian word, which has become fully Arabized. So now we have bustan as part of the Arabic language. But you hear the word tan, right, at the end of it. So that means place, and that is something you see to be an ending in Persian words. And also people that whose lands end with tan, like Afghanistan, Pakistan, Uzbekistan. It just means the people of Uzbekistan. Afghanistan, the people of Afghan, or the Afghan people. Yeah, so it refers to the place, right? So Bustan is a fertile, cultivated tract of land filled with trees, especially fruit-bearing trees. So it's often irrigated, it's lush, it can be an orchard, it can be a garden. And these meanings are contained within the word bustan. So we can see this was a very lush and beautiful, fertile area that they were next to, okay? Ashabul Aika. We're next to this beautiful, lush space. And why is it that this particular qawm or people are mentioned? There were 124,000 prophets sent. Why do we have these particular prophets mentioned, Ashabul Aika, the people of Shu'aib? Because the territories of these people were the lands that Quraysh would pass through regularly for their trade journeys. So it was a place well known to them. There was nothing hidden about these paths, okay? Unfortunately, Ashabul Aika were the Zalimin, as this verse identifies here, right? They were Zalimin because of their shirk, because of their kufr, because of the way they had deviated from the Sirat al-Mustaqim, the straight path. And we know, of course, shirk is the only unforgivable sin. If a person dies upon shirk, that is the only sin that Allah will not forgive. And, sometimes we may think, why is it such a huge sin, right? Why is it the greatest of sins? Well, because it denies the greatest of realities, right? It denies the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you think of an example like of a child who doesn't acknowledge his or her parents, right? Imagine if a child would call their parents by their name, by their first names, and refuse to give them the status that they have as parents, strip that from them, and be, kind to other people, to other relatives, to other friends. So that person is giving the rights of the parents of kind treatment, of respect, of being with them, giving them the best of their companionship. That person is stripping the parents of those rights and giving those rights to others who don't deserve it, who are not worthy of it, who are not entitled to it, right? And dhulm is placing something and other than where it belongs, right? So one of the working definitions of shirk is to give the rights of Allah to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when and and it's so repulsive when a child does it to their parents. Any a stranger observing that situation would identify it as one of injustice and wrongdoing and being, oppressive towards the parents in this denial of the rights. So then what about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى. We cannot compare Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, to any thing at all. So to commit shirk is therefore the greatest dhulm, and therefore it remains the only unforgivable sin, for it denies the greatest of realities, tawheed, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And such deviation is the worst thing someone can do to themselves and die upon, right? Okay, so Ibn Kathir, rahimahullah ta'ala, he comments again just to reinforce the same thing about the identity of these people as expounded by the Quran, that the dwellers of Al-Aika, these again are the people of Shu'aib, alayhi salam, Al-Dhaha, Qatada, others said that Al-Aika refers to intertwined trees. So again, we've made mention of the thick forest that they inhabited. So lots of trees, thick trees apparently. And or the forest was thick because of the numerous number of trees. And Ibn Kathir mentions how what the sin of these people were other than shirk. Does anybody know? Anybody know what was the sin of these people? What sin did they used to commit? Anybody want to type it in the chat? Fraud in business, not giving due measure. Yes, very good. Very good. MashaAllah. Yeah, exactly. So, and it goes to show how we may think of these as small things, but how they're very monstrous in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? They used to, along with shirk, they were also involved in banditry, okay, robbing people, and cheating in weights and measures. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punished them with the sayha, the awful cry, the awful torment that befell them. And that is something they have in common with the way the people of Lut alayhi salam were destroyed. And that wasn't the only punishment that Ashab al-Aika received. They also had that horrible earthquake and the torment of the day of the shadow, right? Which is something we'll get into when we get into that verse elsewhere in the Quran, inshallah. Yes, Hala also mentioned the cheating in trading. Absolutely, exactly. Okay. So if we look at 79, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَانْتَقَمْنَا مِنْهُمْ وَإِنَّهُمَا لَبِإِمَامٍ مُبِينٍ, right? We exacted retribution from them. The desolate locations of both communities lie on a well-known highway. Okay, that's a very, it's a translation. Yes, it does preserve the meaning, but it just completely strips the original of its eloquence, right? So we'll get into the verse itself. Just want to mention Ibn Kathir on this. Anybody know who the people of Shu'aib live next to? Who did the people of Shu'aib live next to? Any idea? What other qawm or nation were they physically close to in terms of the habitation? Could take a guess. Okay, that's all right. If no one wants to. Okay, Lut, yes, very good. Yes, exactly. Lut alayhi salam. It makes sense, right? I kind of actually gave it away when I said, well, we translated the verse of innahuma labi imamin mubin, right? The two of them, both of them are, I actually mentioned this. They're on a clear, well-known location, and we mentioned both of them refers to Ashab al-Aika, the people of Shu'aib, as well as Lut alayhi salam's people. So it kind of gave it away already. But alhamdulillah, good catch. That means you're paying attention. So they lived near the people of Lut alayhi salam, but at a later time, obviously. So Lut alayhi salam preceded them in terms of time, and they knew about the people of Lut alayhi salam. Okay. And this is why we have here the verse, وَإِنَّهُمَا لَبِإِمَامٍ مُبِينٍ. They were both on an open route, plain to see. Okay, so they were on a known highway, a well-trodden highway. It's not like the off-road where, few people travel it. It was an open route where people of Shu'aib were. Again, they're also known as the people of Midian or Madian, and they lay on the route from the Hijaz to Palestine and Syria. So, this was the trade route of the Quraysh, right? They used to go for trading north and south, and to the north of them is Palestine and Syria, and Hijaz is just the Arabian Peninsula, right? So, the Quraysh would go north towards Palestine and Syria regularly for their trade journeys, and Medina was on the way. So the people of Ashab al-Aikab, Shu'aib alayhi salam, people were destroyed, were on the way, just as the people of Lut alayhi salam, because it's the same general territory, okay? And also Ibn Abbas, Mujahid al-Dhahhak, all of them said about them being on a visible route, okay? And the fact that they were close to the people of Lut alayhi salam's territory, which is why in Surah Hud, if you remember, verse 89, Shu'aib alayhi salam, when warning his people, he actually made reference to the people of Lut alayhi salam. وَمَا قَوْمُ لُوطٍ مِّنْكُمْ بِبَعِيدٍ. And the people of Lut are not far off from you, okay? They came before you and they're not far off from you. This is the same, it was the same general area. Now, this exacting of retribution, which is quite terrifying if you look at the Arabic, فَانْتَقَمْنَا مِنْهُمْ, and we exacted retribution from them, we took revenge from them. Like when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this, it is, it does not get more serious than this, and it's incredibly terrifying and exterminating, right? This exacting of retribution when it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and therefore it only happens when the hujjah against the people has been completed, right? So the Quran here, when it comes to the Quraysh and the hujjah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is completing against the Quraysh who were denying the Rasul up to this point, denying his message, part of the hujjah that is being established against them is not only is the messenger among them, him and his personality is a hujjah, who he was before, Al-Amin, who becomes after Rasulullah, right? His presence itself is a hujjah. Number two, the wahi, the Quran itself, in their language, that they're not able to bring the likes of it, produce the likes of it, that is a hujjah against them. And then there's this highly sensory hujjah, if you will, right? This famous trade route that they are on all the time, where the Quraysh have the full opportunity to physically see what happened to the deniers of the truth. The athar, the remnants of that destruction are still there. The signs of these perished nations are still there, and they're experiencing it, right? So the Quranic example here is highly experiential when it's saying وَإِنَّهُمَا لَبِإِمَامٍ مُبِينٍ, right? Their habitations, right? They're both on a clear path, that you have to go on all the time for your living. It's not something you do once in a while. It's a regular part of your life. Now, some of you may be thinking, why is the word imam mubin, right, being used here? Why is it that you have the word imam, who is someone who leads the prayer, someone who guides us, right? Well, the first thing I want to mention is that practically this has the same meaning as labi sabili muqim, right? So if you look at the verse we did last time, verse number 76 from last week, وَإِنَّهَا لَبِي سَبِيلٍ مُقِيمٍ, right? This was referring to the people of Lut alayhi salam, and we had translated this as the place where this occurred lies along a known route, right? So a known route, labi sabil muqim, a well-established or known sabil or path or route. And here we have the word used, labi imam mubin, right? Which we've translated very similarly if you're paying attention, right? A well-known route or well-established route or an open route or well-known highway. They basically mean the same thing. So For our purposes, the general translation is the same, and that does preserve the meaning, but the distinction between the two is lost, of course, in translation. Labi imam, and the word imam specifically here is used because an imam is someone who shows the way, right? Someone who is followed, right? Um, and if you think about what a road or a path does when you're on a journey, when you're going towards your destination, that's exactly what what a road does, right? It shows you the way. It guides you to your destination. And whether it is straight or it is curvy, you keep following it, right? Until you get to the destination, because there is this confidence in the road, in the path, in the way, which is known to be the way to get to your destination. So here, the well-traversed highway, the well-known open route that they traveled, is referred to as, Labi Imam Mubin, as an imam, as a clear imam, in the sense that it is something that is followed. It is something that guides you, right, to your destination. So that was a very beautiful insight to look at the language in that way. So again, this is part of the hujjah that was therefore established against the Quraysh at the sensory level, experiential level, that you really have no excuse. This is not something hidden that you have to go out of your way, literally, to take a lesson from. Rather, it is on your way. You're traversing it all the time. Okay. And again, the common feature these two nations share is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took revenge from both of them. Both of them are on a path that was clearly visible to the Arabs, to the Quraysh, right? And the habitation, the people were familiar with, where another nation denied the truth, like the Quraysh were denying, and they met the same fate. Okay, so this is a great practical, open, clear, sensory warning to the Quraysh, and that's not all. Okay, we have more coming up. So before we go on to the next verse, just to summarize Ibn Kathir's comments on this. I'm sorry, Sheikh Saadi, on this, is that again, they are the people of Shu'aib alayhi salam. And again, they are described or attributed to the lush, thick gardens that they used to live near. Al-Aika, the lush garden that's thick with trees. And subhanAllah, they're identified as such to show Allah's great blessings upon them, so that the Quraysh can also think, wait a minute, we're not the only ones that are blessed with this prosperity that we have in our trade, the opportunity to trade freely, the makan that we have, the status that we have among the Arabs on account of the Kaaba, right? Those are the blessings the Quraysh enjoyed. And here also, by identifying the people of Shu'aib as the people of Al-Aika, their worldly blessings are being highlighted, and how because they failed to show gratitude for it, they were destroyed. So the same warning is being given to the Quraysh. And as we mentioned, Prophet Shu'aib alayhi salam was calling them to Tawheed. They were upon shirk, and he was calling them to Tawheed, to abandon the injustice that they did when it came to measuring and weighing, which again shows the severity of that sin. But they paid no heed, right? They were wronging themselves when they committed shirk against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they were wronging the creation when they cheated in the measures and weights that they would mete out to them in their selling. So they are indeed called al-zalimin, and so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exacted retribution from them, seizing them with the punishment of the day of the canopy, which is another part of the adab or punishment that they received. And that was a tremendous day of tragedy and divine punishment against them. And both of these, the people of Lut alayhi salam and the people of the thicket or Al-Aika, they are along a clear manifest path, and the destruction, the traces of their destruction are plainly visible to the eye. Okay. So let's go on now, inshallah, to verse 80. وَلَقَدْ كَذَّبَ أَصْحَابُ الْحِجْرِ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. وَلَقَدْ and surely كَذَّبَ denied أَصْحَابُ الْحِجْر the people of Al-Hijr al-Mursaleen the messengers. Surely the people of Al-Hijr also rejected the messengers, calling them liars. Let's do 81 along with this. وَآتَيْنَاهُمْ آيَاتِنَا فَكَانُوا عَنْهَا مُعْرِضِينَ. And آتَيْنَاهُمْ we gave to them آيَاتِنَا our signs. Plural of ayah is ayat. And the noon is the dhamir muttasil, the attached pronoun for we. I'm sorry, for our. آتَيْنا, we gave them, right? We gave them. وَآتَيْنَاهُمْ آيَاتِنَا we gave them our signs. فَكَانُوا so they were عَنْهَا from them, يعني from the signs, مُعْرِضِينَ. Okay. A person who is mu'rid is someone who turns away. So they were those who turned away. So let's do the running translation for 80 and 81 together. Surely the people of Al-Hijr also rejected the messengers, calling them liars. We also give them our signs, yet they turned away from them. Okay, so ayatina is our signs. We gave them our signs. Okay, so Al-Hijr sounds a lot like Al-Hajr, right? Al-Hajr is the rock, right? You're familiar with that term, rock or stone, right? So this was a rocky territory, okay? And Al-Hijr refers to the region between northern Arabia and Sham, okay? So imagine the northern part of Arabia, and then there's Sham, there's Syria. So the region that's between the northern part and Syria or greater Syria, which is Sham, this is where these people were located. Okay, and this is actually the name of the surah, right? So we've finally gotten to the verse that the surah is named after. And Al-Hijr was the capital city of the people of Thamud. Okay, so we've met these people before already in various places in the Quran. These are not a new people that we've never heard of. These are the people of Thamud, right? And Al-Hijr was their capital city, and its ruins are found in the modern city of Al-Ula, which is to the northwest of Al-Madinah. So this is something you could actually visit. It's to the north of Medina. On the way from Medina to Tabuk, you can actually, go to this place. And though the caravans had to pass through the valley of Al-Hijr, the Rasul ﷺ had forbidden the Muslims to stay in the valley on their journey. Okay, and we're going to get into that in a moment. It's interesting. This is from Tafhim, what I just narrated in terms of Al-Hijr and where it's located. Tafhim also mentions that when Ibn Battuta reached there in the 8th century of the Hijrah, okay, so in the 14th century, well, 15th century now, right? So this is about 600, 700 years ago. So when he reached there on his way to Mecca, he wrote, I have seen the buildings of Thamud hewed into red mountains. The paintings look so bright as if they have been put on only recently, and rotten bones of human beings are found in them even today. So to be clear about this term Al-Hijr, and again, this is not a very common way of identifying the people of Thamud, right? Sometimes they're called Thamud, right? Salih alayhi salam is mentioned, who was the prophet sent to Thamud. And here you have them being identified with regards to their geography, topography, location, okay? So Al-Hijr is the Quranic name. Okay, Ashab al-Hijr, the people of Al-Hijr. And it is also historically called Mada'in Salih. So actually, if you, asks if you're in Medina and you want to visit, it goes by Mada and Salih, but we really should not visit it for the sake of just visiting it for tourism or for enjoyment rather, because of the fact that it was a place of punishment. And again, it's in the region of Al-Ula, in northwestern Saudi Arabia presently. Okay, it's about 300-400 kilometers north of Medina. Okay, and this location was on the is on the ancient caravan route. Okay, that connected the Hijaz with Syria. So again, a path that was inevitable for the Arabs, for the Quraysh to traverse in their trade journeys. And interestingly, I found that UNESCO recognizes it today as the first World Heritage Site of Saudi Arabia. It was recognized as such in 2008. This was new information. When I was looking this up, I found that I thought that was interesting. And anyhow, it is famous for its rock-hewn tombs and dwellings that were carved into sandstone mountains. So who are Ashab al-Hijr? They're none other than the people of Thamud, to whom Salih alayhi salam was sent, and the miracle was the she-camel. Okay, so all of you are familiar with Thamud, familiar with Salih alayhi salam. You know about the she-camel, the miracle of the she-camel. And now we learn that they're also called Ashab al-Hijr, the people of this area. So again, one thing to point out is that here the Quran is not just simply referencing people who lived a long time ago and they rejected the messengers and they were destroyed. It's not just randomly throwing out a list, right? It's specifically referencing those nations through whose lands the Arabs used to traverse on a regular basis. Again, to make for a much more powerful and complete hujjah that can possibly be delivered, right? This really is bringing the example to life for them. Here's a third example of a people on that same path, right? What happened to all of these people? What happened to the people of Lut alayhi salam and the people of Shu'aib and now the people of Thamud, Ashab al-Hijr, right? These areas that are so familiar to you, O Quraysh, think of the various nations that people that inhabited it, and now what happened to them because of their actions. So make sure you are not doing those things, right? So what we've learned is the people of Thamud are called people of Al-Hijr, that the people of Shu'aib are called Ashabul Aika, and of course you also had the people of Lut, alayhimus salam. And so it's the same general territory, right? All of them were guilty of rejecting the messengers, right? And here you see the rejection of the messengers is made in the plural against the people of Salih alayhi salam, right? The people of Thamud, it says, وَلَقَدْ كَذَّبَ أَصْحَابُ الْحِجْرِ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. That Ashab al-Hijr, the people of al-Hijr, they rejected the messengers, although it was Salih alayhi salam who was sent to them. So why is it in the plural? You'll find in various tafsir that rejecting one is like rejecting all, because the message is the one and the same, right? They received Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's ayat, right? As we see in the next verse, that Allah said that He had given them His signs, but they turned away from those signs. Okay. So they did not respond in a way to those signs that would have warded off the harm and the adab. Okay, because that's really what determines a person's ultimate fate, is how they respond to the ayat that Allah sends, right? And it's not different for us either. Depending on how we interact with the Quran, this is the sign for us now, right? How we respond to the verses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is how, that basically determines our akhirah, right? What we do with what we are given, right? What we do with the opportunities, the signs, the verses, the hujjah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends for us. We don't want it to be a hujjah against us. We want that to be a hujjah in our favor. But that can only happen if the response is positive, right? From our end. This was not the case for Ashabul Hijr. Sheikh Sadi mentions how they were given divine signs, clear proofs of the truth with which Salih alayhi salam had come, and among them was the she-camel, right? Wallahu alam, what other signs were given to them? Because the verse says that they were given signs, right? And we gave them our signs. It's in the plural. One of which we know is the she-camel. That was one of the great signs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent them. And wallahu alam, what other signs there were, but we know the response, which was that they turned away from them. They showed arrogance before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So to summarize, Ibn Kathir says on this point that the dwellers of Al-Hijr were the people of Thamud who rejected their Prophet Salih alayhi salam. Whoever denies even one messenger, then he has disbelieved in all of the messengers, and this is why they're described as rejecting Al-Mursaleen, the messengers in the plural. Allah tells us that He brought them signs to prove that what He was telling them was true, such as the she-camel, which Allah created for them out of a solid rock in response to the dua of Salih alayhi salam. And subhanAllah, that's really interesting because these are the people, of a rocky region, and they used to, make houses from those, mountains or rocks, and from mountains specifically. And then you have the she-camel. It was a miracle from Allah, and it came out of them, was created for them out of a solid rock in response to the dua of Salih alayhi salam, that a sign, a miracle be shown to them. And subhanAllah, this she-camel was grazing on their lands, and the people and the camel took water on alternate days that was established between them, but then and they were not supposed to harm the camel, right? You know the story. But of course they rebelled and they killed it. And so when they did this horrible action, in addition to their other sins, it was said to them, تَمَتَّعُوا فِي دَارِكُمْ ثَلَاثَةَ أَيَّامٍ ذَلِكَ وَعْدٌ غَيْرُ مَكْذُوبٍ. Again from Surah Hud, verse 65. After they did that, after they killed the she-camel, it was said to them, enjoy yourselves in your homes for 3 days. This is a promise which will not be belied. It's going to come true. The punishment is coming. It's on its way. Again, terrifying. This type of warning of complete truth because it is coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَأَمَّا ثَمُودُ فَهَدَيْنَاهُمْ فَاسْتَحَبُّوا الْعَمَى عَلَى الْهُدَى. Okay, and you also have, the references to Thamud as in this verse. And as for Thamud, we showed them and made the path of truth clear, but they preferred blindness to guidance. What do we extract for ourselves from these verses? Because alhamdulillah, we're not committing shirk. Inshallah, we're not cheating people, right? Alhamdulillah, we're not going to deny the clear signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Like miracles, like physical miracles, right? But we don't receive physical miracles. For us, the miracle, the great sign, is the Quran itself. So what is our interaction and response to the Quran? Are we turning away from it? This is the reason why these examples of previous nations are given to us. Not because we are going to commit the shirk that they did, but do we have some characteristics of those people? For example, people of Thamud were those who turned away, mu'rideen, from the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For us, the greatest ayat are the ones in His book, in the Quran. And how many times is it that we know something is wrong, we know what the Quran or Hadith say about it, yet we still do it? So are we acting like mu'rideen? Are we acting like those people who turn away from the signs? And this is why the examples of such nations are given to us, to warn us, to compel us to do a self-scan. Do I have some characteristics of these people who were ultimately destroyed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And we seek Allah's refuge from that. So instead of turning towards these signs, they turned away from them. And Aliza mentions this is a sign for us to reassess our intentions and actions. Yes, absolutely. Muslims, by definition, have to be mindful people, right? Every action is according to the intention behind that action. So, you can be doing something good, but if there's no intention behind it, to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to worship him, then that act has no reward associated with it. It's lost time, it's lost energy, it's lost effort. Why do that to ourselves, right? Turning towards the signs of Allah, the verses of Allah, with the intention of applying them, and it makes this whole class, this whole any effort that you exert in the Quran, it becomes, of course, ibadah. It becomes something that will bear fruit in your life, right? But only bear fruit when that ilm, that knowledge, becomes amal with the right intention, right? So again, we don't know what other signs they were given. The Quran mentions multiple signs, right? In terms of ayatina, right? Our signs. We just know about the she camel. And whatever the other signs were, wallahu alam, we know what the response was. Mu'ridin. They were those who turned away. Yes, Jazakallah khair, Sister Hala, for that. اتخذوا هذا القرآن مهجورا. Right, one of the complaints of the messenger is that these people have abandoned the Quran, right? So this is the test that we have, and it's kind of scary to see the abandonment of the Quran in terms of the abandonment of its meanings. Because people read the Quran and don't understand what it means. And yesterday we had a talk on this, that, this is the only book in the world, as Shaykh Hakram always points out, Hafidhahullah, in the world that is read without understanding its meanings by the majority of the people who read it for barakah or reward. And we don't treat any other book like this. Is there any other book that you read, or anyone reads, or any nation reads in any language, that is read, but you don't know the meaning of what you're reading, and you do this over and over again, over decades, over a lifetime, especially when the purpose of the book is hidayah. The purpose of its revelation is to guide you in your life so you can be successful forever and ever. Like, is there a more important book than that? Is there a greater goal and purpose than that? And then to do that to this book, right? To read it without understanding it, to the book whose purpose is to understand so it can guide you forever. It's such a tragedy. I mean, if that's not mahjura, if that's not abandonment, right? Then what is, right? To just, have it in our shelves, but, to take it out for barakah, to take it on occasions, to read it when someone dies. This is really not befitting believers, and not something that will lead us to our purpose. Like, if you're going somewhere new or old and you just want to have your GPS on, right? Is that map going to help you if you keep reading but you don't understand what left means, and what turn right means, and what take the U-turn at the third stoplight? If you don't know what those terms mean, is reading those set of directions over and over again going to get you to your destination? I mean, of course not. And what's sad is that we don't do this in any other area of our life, in any other book, with any other book, with any other instruction manual, right? We don't do this. So this is something we really need to revive and, act more rationally. So in Tadabbur al-Quran, which is a great tafsir by Sheikh Amin Islahi, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions about these ayat, about these signs. Then again, what we have already mentioned, that in addition to the she camel, perhaps there were other signs. Again, just trying to explain, how the word is signs in the plural, that Allah sent them when we gave them our signs, but they were those who turned away from them. And he mentioned in his tafsir, interestingly, that these could have been aqli or fitri proofs as well, intellectual proofs, or proofs that were based on their fitra, perhaps. I mean, it makes perfect sense that a messenger would appeal to those as well. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Okay, we do have time for one more verse. Let's do 82. وَكَانُوا يَنْحِتُونَ مِنَ الْجِبَالِ بُيُوتًا آمِنِينَ. And كانوا, they were, or they used to, ينحتون, the root word nun hata, ينحتون, carving. Okay, so they used to carve min from al-jibal, pearl of jabal, which are the mountains, buyutan, homes or houses, aminin, in a state of security. Okay. So 82, they used to hew out houses from the mountains and lived in security. So subhanAllah, these were a tremendous civilization in terms of its architectural feats, in terms of the great security they enjoyed, in terms of the engineering ingenuity they had achieved just to be able to make homes out of mountains. That requires a lot, of all of those skills, right? Engineering, knowledge, manpower, resources, tools, strength, money, right? So we get a lot of information about them, about their financial, economic, other resources, status, just from this ayah, which says that they used to carve their homes from the mountains. Like, I mean, does anybody even do this? Like, can anyone really afford to do this even today, right? But this is, they were busy doing this, right? Busy in dunya, no time, paying no mind to the call of the messengers. And this is what this shows us, is that a believer is someone that is thoughtful. A believer is someone who always cares about the knowledge they receive. A believer is someone who always cares about their responsibilities and the fact that they're accountable. This attitude we have nowadays of I don't care, what that really is saying is that I'm not paying attention to the fact that I'm accountable. Because as soon as you're a baligh, that means you automatically have to care because Allah has made you mukallif. Once you are baligh, you reach puberty, you immediately become mukallif, accountable for your actions. So you must care about your actions. You must care about how you respond to the knowledge that you receive. You must care about the rights of people that Allah has made binding upon you, right? So a believer, by definition, is never heedless because she believes in the day of Hisab, Yawm al-Hisab. Believing in Yawm al-Qiyamah makes you someone automatically who cares, who is not mu'ridin, who is not of those that turn away. I don't care, whatever. This is never the believer, because a believer is always accountable. Someone who's accountable must care about that which they have to render account for. Those are their fara'id, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as well as the rights of others that Allah will ask them about. So we can never have this I don't care attitude. And if we do, then this is acting like those people who didn't care what the messenger said, who didn't care about whatever revelation or message came to them, who didn't care that this she camel has been brought out as a sign to prove the truth of what Salih alayhi salam in this case was saying. They didn't care. They just kept doing what felt good, enjoying their luxurious life, carving, sculpting, perhaps even beyond their needs, this extravagant art of hewing homes out of the mountains. And it was something that they excelled at. So, sometimes we have to take a look at our skills and talents as well. Just because you can do something really well doesn't mean that the majority of your energy should be going in that direction. If it's not getting you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or advancing you in your akhirah, or advancing you as a person, as a Muslim, as a believer. We have to find a way to hone even our talents and skills to serve the greater purpose of our lives, not just to do something because it feels good and we're really good at it. So anyhow, we can deduce from this, carving from the mountains, carving homes from the mountains, as they were really a mighty people, very, very rich and very physically strong as well. They had an abundance of resources that they took advantage of, but only for the sake of their dunya, right? They were unable to take advantage of them for their akhirah, which would have been by showing gratitude, by believing in Thamud and Saleh, in Saleh alayhi salam, right? In acknowledging the she camel and giving it its right, not killing it, right? And they were very proud and haughty, as we saw in Surah Hud. One of the the elite, the rich people, they were just very, very proud, and they thought they could get away with anything, get away with murder, right? Which is what they did. They killed that she-camel. And subhanAllah, it's interesting how the verse ends with aminin, that they used to كانوا ينحتون من الجبال بيوتا آمنين, right? They used to carve these mountains out of stone in a state of aman, in a state of security, in a state of peace, right? I mean, carving houses into the most solid and soundest structure on earth, the mountains themselves, this must have served to only increase that deep sense of security, you know. And then he mentions how there's strong, secure buildings, which they had hewed into the mountains, you know, ultimately did not avail them at all, right? So no matter how strong we feel, how secure we feel, sins have a way of catching up and haunting us if we don't repent from them. Ibn Kathir mentions how they used to hew out dwellings from the mountains, you know, again, feeling very secure. They had no fear. They were fearless people. And Ibn Kathir actually even mentioned that they had no real need for these houses. This is the first time I came across that. I was not aware of this tafsir, that they had no real need for those houses. It was merely a form of extravagance and work without a purpose. This could be seen from the work in the houses in Al-Hijr, in that area, through which the Rasul passed on his way to Tabuk. And what I want to end with, and we'll continue next time, is I want us to think about the facade of security, the false sense of security that these homes gave to them. And perhaps our reflection question can be related to things that give us a false sense of security that may distract us from our real purpose. Perhaps we want to reflect on that. So with that, if you don't mind turning that into a reflection question about how things that we have in our lives that we may take for granted, or they're a regular part of our lives, and impart upon us a sense of security that may be, you know, that is false, that is temporary, and may actually delude us from our ultimate purpose. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Okay, so inshallah, with that, we conclude for today. سبحانك وبحمدك لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.